Another one of our adventures. And part of the fun of doing photographs like we do is getting to the photograph or chasing the light. In this case, we were trying to find a road that would lead us to the top of a mountain because we saw a little sign that said such and such falls. Of course, we were expecting, a 20-foot waterfall with water teeming over it, and what did we get? A 6-foot waterfall with hardly anything. So we both had fun photographing this, and our images kind of look a little bit different. But let's talk how you have approached your image on this waterfall shot.
The Adobe engineers say, a good thing to follow is to kind of follow the sliders down. So if we consider color balance here, what I could try is get the eyedropper and just is that neutral? No.
No, like on top of the water might be neutral there.
Yeah, water's usually pretty neutral. Okay,
Yeah,
there we
there you
go.
go.
Yeah, so 6,000, and I like my magenta, so I'm gonna warm it up just a little bit more. So I'm gonna start with that.
Okay.
And again, getting the color balance exactly right is on a monitor is very tough. You almost have to make a print to tell.
Now, when we look at this image, though, one of the things, we lose a little bit of the water here, so you probably want to bring some of that back, I would presume.
Well, I'm going to do that in Photoshop, actually.
You are, okay.
Because that would be a selection.
And, of course, we got a big-ass bright tree here.
And also, we have some very dark tones in here. If I hover down here, it's L2, basically.
Well, that's pretty black.
That's real black. So I'm going to do some things to try to open that up. So one of the way to open the shadows and open everything up is to do a little bit more exposure. So I'll go a little way. If I go too far, then these really start to look too bright. And I might do a little minus highlights too to try to get some separation back in these tones. Let me take it all the way down to minus 100. So here's before, after. I think that reads better. Mm-hmm. Because minus highlights does not necessarily mean darkening highlights. What it means is give me more highlight separation and detail in the highlights. And that's, I think, what we're getting. Now, to open the shadows up, I'm going to go quite a ways up here, maybe 50, 60.
There you go. That's opening up quite a bit.
And then another way you can open the shadows too is open up the blacks. So I'm going to go to a fair bit here, 40, something like this. So let's see. So this is now L4. That's an improvement. But I mean, visually, we've opened up things quite a bit. Now, I always love my clarity. So we'll do...
You have your favorite sliders, don't you?
I do. And so far, nobody has staged an intervention for my abuse of the clarity slider.
You're getting close.
So, and maybe a little vibrance.
If we hang out long enough, they're going to come and do an intervention for both of us.
Okay, well, I think that's looking pretty good. So we're going to open it up in Photoshop as a smart object. So I'll just jump straight away to the master file that we've already worked on here, and I'll say, and by the way, when you do a smart object and you say open, when it's not a raw file, you will get this dialog box. And if this is a Photoshop file with layers, you want to choose Edit Original. Otherwise, it'll flatten all your layers. So normally when you get this dialog box, you want to choose Edit Original. Okay, and boom, here's our file. So let me take all the layers off and show you what I did. I think you can kind of tell I've reorchestrated the light. Here's before, after. So the spotlight is almost kind of right here. And so I want to put the spotlight on the waterfall. And how would you do that if I select the waterfall and the surrounding dark tones? What I can do is lock the dark tones down and then lighten up the lighter tones, and the waterfall should just pop out. So let me actually, we've got the layer here, but I want to show people how I did this. So I will select, I'm going to get some of these specular highlights in here too, because they could stand to be a little brighter. And we don't want to get the needles, but something like that. Again, loose and sloppy. And you always want to feather it. This is a smaller selection, so maybe not quite as much feathering. And then I'll do the new curve. So, since I've selected carefully, the histogram shows what's in the selection. So we've got a lot of dark tones, and then over here is where the water is. So what I'm going to do first is lock down the really dark tones. So that would be like right down here. I have the magic finger the targeted adjustment tool on here, so all I have to do is click, and that'll put a
That'll
point
lock the
there,
point there, yep.
and you'll see the numbers match. The input and the output are the same. Now, to lock down a curve like this, you need at least 2 points, 2 to 3, to really make it stable. So let me find maybe just a slightly brighter area here, maybe there. And let me hover over the water, and you can see like the water right there, the little circle there, so it's quite a bit brighter. So I think we've got 2 lockdown points. Let me now just put a point on the curve and move it to the left to start brightening the waterfall. And again, let me turn that on and off. So kind of like magic, you get a spotlight on the waterfall. And I like that so much, although it kind of poops out down here.
A little bit.
So what I'm going to do is do it again for down here.
Loose
and sloppy.
Yep.
That's an even smaller selection, so I'll make the feathering less. And now waterfall 2, lower waterfall. And lock again some really dark tones down and some slightly lighter tones. And then pull this over and let's see. Okay, we're getting a little bit lighter right there.
Yeah, big difference though.
And I think
Is
it
it
helps
too much?
down here. I don't think so.
No, it's nice.
Yeah. Now I didn't include the water at the bottom, so what I'm going to do is go back to the first one I did, and I'm going to get the paintbrush with white, maybe 60% opacity, and say let's paint that in. And I think the tones are very similar. So what's happening is it'll keep the water where it was, and just lighten the brighter parts of that water. Now I can do Command Z here.
Oh yeah, look at that. Yep.
So that was the main thing I did. I have a few more layers here to talk about. In this picture, I thought we have some very dark tones in here, and then down in here, it's like the background tones are too light. I want it to look more like this. So what I did was select that area, and I locked some lighter tones down, and then pooched down the darker tones. And it's not strong, but here's before, after.
Yeah, very subtle.
And then I thought we had some fairly light areas that really need to be tamped down here. So I have a big layer here, darken, and here's that curve. So I tamed it a little. I brought the top point down, and then I also did a detail curve where you make the curve steep in the highlights. So let me turn that on. So that's darkening up here, and down here. So I think that makes a big difference. Again,
Certainly it's a huge difference.
We're making the waterfall glow. We're taking away competing rogue highlights. And then I thought it was still kind of light there, so I did an even really strong darkening curve there. And that's about all I did. And I think it's ready for a print. Because my philosophy is, and what I tell workshops is, take no more than 20, 30 minutes tops on working up that first print. Because, again, you might be terribly fooled by the monitor. So the quicker you get it to paper, the more progress you'll make.
Well, push the P for print, and let's take a look at what you got.
Great. All right, this one I think looks pretty good. I brought the water up quite a bit, and I darkened the edges a whole bunch too. But I'm wondering if this tree is overpowering it.
Yeah, it doesn't balance out very well with the water. It's kind of bright.
Yeah. So
maybe the water can come up a little bit too.
That would be good, and then maybe take the tree down. So the spotlight is kind of on the tree, so I'm going to try to move the spotlight maybe over more to the waterfall.
That would make sense. All right, I want to see how you do that. That big green tree on the left was really hitting us hard.
Yeah, I mean, it looks fine, but I think it's kind of stealing the show. So I want to darken it down. And so what I did here, and I can't show you the before and after, is I made the curve even stronger.
That's a pretty exaggerated waterfall curve.
Yeah, let me turn it on and off.
So we really popped the water now.
Yeah. But I think in the print, if you see it before and after, you think that's going to be phony.
No,
but I think it reads very nicely.
Yep.
So to darken this tree, basically what I did was I lassoed the tree, And here's the curve I use. So it's, and let me explain this type of curve here. Let me turn it on. So there's, to control highlights, we basically have two types of curves. One is the taming curve, which just takes contrast out and takes the brilliance out, but it kind of, really deadens it. And sometimes that's not exactly what you want to do, and I felt that wasn't what we wanted here. What I wanted here was more detail and separation in the highlights. And the way to do that is to make the curve steep in the highlight area. And the highlight area is towards the right, so I'll put a point there and use the arrow key and move it that way. And let me turn the eyeball on and off. And so it's separating the highlights even more, and I think that's the effect that we
It
wanted.
looks very nice now. It looks, because you are focusing on the waterfall. Mission accomplished.
Okay.
Good. Wow, what a difference. Water really popped now. I mean, especially down here. This certainly turned down and feels much more balanced when you look at it. It actually leads you more into the water than distracts you from going away from the water.
It plays better with the other tones, yes.
You kind of just flip-flop them. It's kind of cool. And it would work kind of just like we saw on the computer, too. It's, you can just see the difference. Very nice. So you happy with that?
I am.
And didn't you, we did a little darkening up on the top, too, did we not?
I think I had darkened that substantially
On the first
in the first print.
Yeah.
So it was mainly lightening this and darkening that.
Very nice. Who would have thought that was so dark down there when we shot that you'd come out with a nice image like that? Okay.
Great.
Looks like a good print to me.